Hello everybody, Cody here, and today we're going to be going over some really fun stuff for you guys to be playing around with, and this is an essential thing for you all to learn because your mind is the sky, or the sky is the limit, maybe even beyond that, okay? So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be adding some custom objects into our scenes. So I got some footage recorded from down the street from me here over in some church parking lot of me walking through it. We first have to stabilize it, add the motion tracking, and then I'm going to show you guys how to get that into Blender in just a few clicks where you can just start animating right in your Blender scene, right over the video. And you can and I'll show you how to composite this with like 3 nodes, okay? So this is a very simple process, okay? So we'll just go with this step by step so we don't get too confused with information going ahead of itself. So what we're going to start with is just import your footage for now into After Effects. Import it as the footage, so the entire composition is the exact same size as your footage. And so that usually happens once you import something, okay? The next thing you're going to notice when I play back my footage is that it's incredibly shaky, and that's going to be a really big issue for motion tracking. So we can fix this extremely easy. So what we're actually going to do is go to just type stable in your doohickey down there, and then what we're going to do is grab underneath distort. We're going to grab the warp stabilizer, and we're going to drag that onto our scene. It'll analyze just like the motion capture control scheme, or whatever the hell you want to call it, the UI. But we're going to wait for this to finish, and then we should have stable footage. We can reduce the smoothness. So once this is finished, you're going to notice when I play it back that it's going to have like little fluctuations of it zooming in and zooming out. And that might have something to do with the lens trying to correct itself, but it doesn't seem to really matter. So this will still work really well, and we can move the smoothing down. So I usually put it about 40% is what I recommend you doing. But we're just going to wait for these frames. You can see it up here at the top corner. We're at 30-40% now. We're just going to wait for that to finish and jump right back. All right, now that it is finished stabilizing, when I play it back, you're going to see some magic now, okay? You guys ready for this? Like, are you ready? Like, this is pretty crazy. Like, look at that. Look how stable that footage is compared to how shaky that footage was. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me, okay? So, you're going to need to do 2 things now. First and foremost is render this out with the motion stabilizer, okay? Because we have to use this footage inside of Blender, and it has to be the same footage that we motion track inside of After Effects. So go ahead, render this out, and to do the motion tracking over this, what we have to do is right click down here in your timeline, and what you want to do is hit pre-compose, and then you want to select this bottom one, move all attributes to the new composition, and just hit OK. Now you're going to notice that your effect disappeared. That's because it's now baked into the scene. So now as you see that the warp stabilizer is now in our main footage, and you can tell if this goes solid gold, you're good to go. So render this out, save it somewhere, and we're going to be using this later in Blender. So for right now, after you're done rendering this out, the next thing we're going to do is come back down into our effects doohickey, and we're going to type track. Alright, and then we're going to go to 3D camera tracker, and we're going to drag that right on top of the scene, and once again this is going to start to analyze, but this will give us a point cloud. So as this is analyzing, I recommend you change your target size down to about 88 and your point size to about 87, just a little bit lower than 100, and we're going to wait for this to finish and then come back. And shablam, look at that. Now we got what these little dots right here are called a point cloud, okay? You can see them all over the place in my scene, along the walls. It's going to go way back. And what you can do as well is move forward in your timeline. Oh, sorry, spider. And you can actually discover more point clouds. So it renders your whole scene based on distance and all that stuff. So look at that. I even got point clouds back there on the church wall. But pretty much what we're looking for to start with is a ground origin, okay? So we need to find a good point from the starting of the clip, I always do, and try to find a good ground origin, okay? So this is going to go right in the center where the target is. So we want to get this. Even if this isn't the one that we're animating, this is always best to do for getting the camera. So god damn it. So what I'm actually going to do is move forward. Something like that. See, like, kind of got to wiggle it around. Find a good spot. It's a little angled. Go a little bit further. We'll keep it doing. Right, a bit. That looks okay. So we're going to click there, and without moving the mouse any further, you're going to right click, and then you're going to hit create solid and camera, and you're going to notice right away that it adds this solid plane right there, okay? So, and we also have the camera data in the scene, and now if you move back through your timeline, you'll notice that your little plane is tracked, right? So it's that easy to motion track inside of After Effects. So the next one I'm going to do, I'm going to put right here on this wall. I'm going to hit right click, and this time we're just going to hit create solid, okay? So we have the camera data, we have the solid data, and this is all you have to do. And now we're good to go to jump into Blender, but leave After Effects open because we do just have to copy with Control V some settings over from After Effects into Blender, and that's specifically just the data of these things down here. And you can do that just by clicking, hit Control C, and then we're gonna jump on over into Blender, and then that's where you're gonna enable the add-on AE2 Blend, and that's gonna get you started. So I'll put that in the description of the video. I believe there was a free version you can try. I believe it was to try, or it was just an outdated version, but the outdated version works just fine, and there's a newer version that is paid. I highly recommend that you support the developer of this add-on because this is what innovation looks like, right? Being able to take a tool that you already know and you find a problem within that tool, but you make it a lot easier, it not being your program, so you're just finding the algorithm to that. So what we're going to do now is jump on over into Blender. Alright, now that I'm inside of Blender and I have my AE2 Blend add-on enabled, and I do find if you use Blender 3.5 works for some reason the best out of the last 3 versions I have tried from 3.6, just can't seem to do it correctly. But after you guys enable your add-on, you're going to notice this new little tab right here under your tools, and it's called AE2 Blend. So it might look like that, just expand it. And this will be here under the object mode and your rotation and stuff like that. And this is the section we're going to be looking at: create camera, create plane, okay? So this is where we're going to start to copy over our data from After Effects. I'm going to jump back over into there. Okay, so now I'm in After Effects. We're going to start with the camera. So I want you to click the drop down arrow next to the camera. I want you to click the transform. And then we're going to copy, I believe it's the first 2 from this, or sorry, it's the first 4, I believe. Well, the rotation has 0, so if there's no axis in there, you don't exactly need it. So I'm actually just going to copy the position and rotation, hold shift, click them both, press Control C to copy. While you're in After Effects, now we can jump back over into Blender, okay? And now we're going to look where it says create camera. We're going to tap that, okay? And you're going to notice right away that in our timeline that just copied over our camera, right? So this is our camera inside of After Effects. And if I move this to 1, it'll correct itself, right? So this is our entire motion inside of After Effects, which is effing mind-blowing to me that you can just do that, right? So now we're going to start getting the plane in, and then we're going to get the video on, which is also an extremely easy step. So we're going to jump back over into After Effects here. And then what we're going to do is minimize the tracker, and we're going to take our first solid that we made, so it would be the tracker solid 1. We're going to go to transform. We're going to click, I'm not sure if you need the anchor point, but we're going to click the yes, the anchor point in these 4. So we're only going to go down to orientation with this. We're going to hit Control C. Now we're going to go back into Blender. I'm just going to get out of this camera mode here. And then what I'm going to do is hit create plane, and you're going to notice that our plane is created. And when I go into my scene view, we have the exact position of it, right? So now when I move this forward, you'll notice that we have our object, and we can animate over that object. So we're going to keep that in mind. So now to get the video into your scene, you're going to click the camera. So I just click this outer line here, and you're going to notice in your properties that you have a camera data section. So we're going to click the camera data section. We're going to click background images, hit the drop down arrow, add image. We're going to hit movie clip. We're going to hit open. We're going to find our movie clip. So in this case, I have mine here. And as you see, we now have our movie clip, the one that we rendered out from After Effects. Remember that. So the next thing we can do is actually scroll on by and just see if that's holding its position. You'll notice that it's a little wavy, and I'm going to show you how to fix this in a moment, but you'll notice that it is in its correct position, right? So all we can pretty much do from this point now is just get out of the camera view, go over to that plane, and start animating things on it, right? But we have to do a few things first, right? So you're going to notice right away that this doesn't exactly line up and stay locked onto the position it's supposed to. We have two things to change, and I want you to take double focus, and you may think that you're right, but even I was wrong when I did this, okay? And it had to do with the resolution of the camera from inside After Effects, and I believe that had to do with my Galaxy S9. Although it said 1920 by 1080, for some reason it was 1920 by 864. So that's what you have to put in to your camera resolution. I'm going to show you how to do that here in a moment. But the first thing we want to do is change our focal length right here, so you can do this very easily. So we're going to jump back over into After Effects here real quick. We're going to minimize this, and we're going to double click on the 3D camera tracker, and you're going to notice right here we have focal length, okay? So you're going to click that, Control C. Now you can cancel out of that in After Effects. Now we're going to jump back into Blender, and we're going to paste that right where it says focal length. And you're going to notice that the plane started to snap a bit more into place. And now when we play back, you'll see that it's more set to its origin, but you'll see right there that it starts to lift off its plane, and that has everything to do with the resolution. So we're going to jump on over into our resolution tab. So it's 1920 by 1080, and I'm going to show you how you can find the resolution of your footage in After Effects. So one more time, we're going to bounce on over into After Effects. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is go over into the Projects tab, and right here where your composition is, you're going to click Composition Settings, and you're going to notice right here, see if that window popped up in Blender there for you. Here, let me get a little window tab, capture, and then this thing. Okay, so you're going to notice right away that in my composition settings, my width is 1920 by 864, right? So that was the whole problem I was having before with doing this, wondering why that wasn't going correctly. For some reason, After Effects thinks that my camera was taking it at a different resolution and just set it that way. I'm not sure. I'm not a complete expert on that type of thing. But one thing I do know is the next thing we can do is, now that we know our resolution, jump back over into Blender, and we're going to set that to 864, or I am at least, so it's 1920 by 864. And you're going to notice that that looks a little bit more of what we were looking at inside of After Effects. And you'll notice when I play it back, our plane is completely locked to the floor. Like, that looks incredible, right? Like, that's absolutely mind-blowing to me. And what we can do now as well, so I'm just going to jump over into After Effects and do the same thing. Get your second or another one of your panels there that you added in on your track points. Click the transform, and we're going to go from anchor point, the first four, down orientation, copy, and I'm just going to drag this one in as well. So I'm going to create plane again, and you're going to notice that we have another plane on the wall, right? So that's really cool as well, and you'll notice that that thing is stuck on there. That thing ain't going nowhere. So now we're pretty much good to animate, right? So what we're going to do next is get a character into the scene, and I'm going to show you how to composite everything so when you render it out, that everything just looks the way you want it to, okay? So let's get started doing that. I'm going to quickly import a character. I don't know if I'm just going to do a Halo character or a Sonic character, but we're just going to do something, okay? So give me a moment to do that. All right, now that I got my model imported here, so I wanted a spaceship, okay, guys? I really want a spaceship, so I just decided to go in Sketchpad and get this TIE fighter here, okay? So I'm just going to go over into my shaded mode and make sure all the textures just kind of, you know, load in. Because I find once we start adding all the cycles and stuff like that, but we're going to have issues. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to rotate this around. Perfect, okay? So now say I want this object onto the plane. All I have to do is make sure all that is highlighted, hold shift, and click on this little origin point. And then what we're going to do is right-click it. We're going to hit Snap, and then we're going to hit Selection to Active. And then now our TIE Destroyer, I think that's what this bad boy was, will be right there. We can actually just pull that up. We can zoom in a bit, and you're going to notice that our TIE Fighter is in the scene. And now we can kind of just tinker around with it. Try not to change its origin point. You won't see a shadow right now, but we'll get into that. But you'll notice right now, if I were to play this back, we get closer to the ship. You'll notice a little bit of an up and down right there, and that could have a lot to do with the keyframes that we're adding in here. So the next thing we're going to make sure we do is go into the camera, and you're going to notice right away is that our camera starts after this point. We can always just take these and push this forward a little bit, And this should give us a more solid track. Look how solid that is. Like it's perfect. Absolutely perfect, right? So we can do that with the TIE fighter. We can do this with anything. We can even take this plane that we imported. We can stretch this up. So I'm just going to make sure my TIE fighter is all the way on it, not clipping through the ground, right? And what we can do is take this plane. We can come into our render tab. We can come all the way down to film. We can hit transparent, and that's going to make the background transparent, so we have to do that for compositing anyway, so I made you do that now. The next thing we're going to do is change this into a shadow catcher, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is find, I believe that was in this tab, this orange box object tab. We're going to come down into visibility, yes, and then we're going to change it to a shadow catcher. And now when I go into my full rendered scope, you won't be able to see the camera right away. Oh, yes, you can see the camera. Perfect. But now you'll notice that we have shadows on our parking lot, right? So we're just going to wait for these textures to pop in unless it just needs a light in the scene. If we can just add a basic light, you can add an HDRI, and HDRI is definitely recommended for doing this. I'm just going to point that like that. Kind of follow where your sun is, right? So maybe I'll even just delete that, go into Blender Kit and use an HDRI. So I'm going to go to category, outdoor. Maybe we'll just pick one with a horizon. We're not going to look at it anyway, but we want to kind of match the illumination of what's going on in our background. And as you see, it's not exactly perfect, but this is crazy that you can just do this inside of Blender, right? So now when I move into the scene, it's only bouncing around because the frames are trying to catch up in cycles mode. So if I were to go back and just to regular object mode, you won't see that bouncing around. But what we can actually do now is something really fun, is we can click our TIE bomber, hit the auto keyframe, which is on, which it shouldn't be. So we're going to delete that, and the next thing we can do is move up in the timeline, say about 20 seconds, and we can make this bad boy start to take off as it's playing too, so something like that. And then it's going to rotate. Like so. And on that keyframe as well, we can add some up and down height to it. We'll even make it come down a bit, so it goes up. May even start to add the rotation inside of the TIE fighter as it's coming up. So very slowly, it'll go up. And then 80, it'll just start to take off. Right? So now you'll notice that we have an animated scene in our project, right? So we now have a TIE fighter in our scene, and it's taking off, and it looks fantastic, right? So none of this plane is going to be here when we're done our composite, but now we're pretty much good to go. If you say you wanted to render this out, you definitely could do that. But I kind of wanted to add a few more things into the scene. So what I'm actually going to do is get out of that. I'm going to download another model here and import that. Alright, so the next model I ended up just downloading was this R2-D2, because we're just going to kind of get a good little, you know, little scene going here. We can add so many things to it. Now that we got track points, we can even go back into After Effects. That's why you should leave it open also, is in case you need to go back and get extra track points, you can do that. So what I'm actually going to do is just kind of push this in. I'm going to go into my camera mode, and this is what I mean. You can just make sure R2 is in place. And you see that his head is animated, which is still pretty cool. So what we're actually going to do is just snap this, because we don't want it to bounce around, right? So if we don't snap it to the origin of one of the track points, it may start to, like, you know, look a little wobbly, because we're actually changing the perspective of the camera from the model that it's trying to detect, right? So what we're going to do is go to selection to act. Whoop. Select it. Okay, snap, selection active. And now we have our R2 on the scene, and now when we play... Oh, damn it, I forgot the keyframes. There we go. Just leave the last one and delete that. Now when we play back, you'll notice that our R2D2 is locked onto its spot, and that's pretty much great, right? So we want the R2 to be locked onto the scene, but what we can also do is come back out. Now that we have that position locked, whoop, don't want to move that. I just want R2. We can move them forward. You see the height difference in the camera, right? So the closer we're getting to the camera, the higher R2D is looking, but he's not actually getting any higher to the camera. And see how he pushes back, and that's also because we have a keyframe. So we can get pretty close to Mr. R2 right there, right? So we can have the TIE fighter in the background. We can just push R2 up even a little closer. Even make him a bit bigger and a little bit more down. And the next thing we can do is change the rotation of our R2. Do a bit more of a pitch. Blah! Damn keyframe. That's another thing, is make sure you turn the auto keyframe off. And as you see, we're now getting closer to our R2. And this will be transparent in the background, and we're going to be needing one for R2, so I can actually go to copy. I can paste this. What I'm going to do is move it underneath R2. Go into my camera mode. I'm actually going to rotate this plane a little bit, like that. And now when we go into our shaded mode, you're going to notice right away that those planes disappeared. But now we have shadows inside of our scene. And look how cool that looks, right? And this thing is 100% motion tracked all inside of Blender. And as you see that our plane disappeared right there at the end for some reason. I think it's because we had a keyframe set to this one. Yes, it is. So we're going to delete that keyframe, hit paste, and kind of just get this shadow map up. Again, we accidentally deleted it. Just like that. And the shadow is always a good determination of how far you are from the ground, as you can see there. So make sure you get that right onto his feet, just like that. And we pretty much have a motion track scene. And look how beautiful that looks. Like, that looks incredible. Especially if we use the correct HDRIs. Because, mind you, we can change the tone of the light all by the HDRI. So even if I go back into HDRI, say go to outdoor, we're going to find a bit of a brighter day. So that was close, but it's not perfect. This is more of a brighter day to me. So we're going to bring this one in instead. Yeah, so that kind of matches a lot better with what's going on. You see the sun direction. Always try to get the direction of our light to match the direction of the sun in our image. That way you know which direction everything's going from. But for now, we're pretty much good to render out our scene. As you see, our R2D2, we can get right up close to our R2. And I'm actually just going to make this 120 frames, maybe. Cut the video down a little bit. And look, yeah, see, it stays perfectly tracked off of the camera, unlike Mocha. So that's what I loved about doing this one. And everyone's always like, motion tracking in Blender is so complex. It's really not complex at all, right? So we're actually just going to delete that shadow catcher off of the wall there. And for some reason, our shadows vanished again on our R2. What I'm going to do is copy that, paste it. Oh, yeah, we have a keyframe. That does make a lot of sense. So we do have a keyframe still in the scene. So anytime the scene is resetting, it's resetting our plane. Okay, so now we're going to do this. And now I'm going to show you guys how to render this out, because rendering this out is just as easy as we did it. So let's get to it. Okay, now we're all good to go, like I said, to render, and we already pretty much have it set up, and that's why I got you guys to enable that transparency early, so we could just jump right into this next step. So up at the top here, you're going to notice you have these bars a lot of people don't normally click on, but you should. We're going to click the compositing tab, and we're going to click this use nodes up here. We have a render layer. We have a composite, right? So what we're going to do is just take the composite and move this guy over a bit. I want you to press Shift A. I want you to search for, I think it's movie clip. Yes, it is. Add the movie clip here. You can click this drop down, add your movie clip, and it's going to show your movie clip right there. You need to add one more thing to this, an alpha over. So we're going to hit search. We're going to type alpha. and we're going to click alpha over. And now we have to do this a little bit opposite, okay? So we're going to take the image plug right here, just click and drag and plug it into the bottom one. And then the movie clip, I always leave on the bottom and just plug it into the top one. So it looks like this. And then what we can do is take this image pole right here and move that into the image. So this will, our alpha over is going to be the output to our composite, okay? So now if I were to go into rendering, I think I have to render the image first. So I'm just going to render a quick image so you can see that everything does in fact composite. So we're just going to wait for this to go by. So I'll wait for this to get to 40, and this will work, so you don't have to render things separately. You're good to go. You just render the video and it's done. And now you're good to upload it to YouTube or whatever it may be. But you're going to notice right now that's hanging on the 38 from the 40, and now we have our background added into our scene. So this is incredibly cool, and I think everybody should give this a shot because that looks incredible to me, right? So what I can actually do is just save this out as a thumbnail or something like that. So I don't know, do something like that. I was gonna make a cooler thumbnail if anybody who's willing to, click on the video. But anyway, that's all you have to do, right? So the next thing you have to do to render this out as a video, and it is very important that you do this step, okay? So where you come into your output options, you're going to see that we have RGB here, right? So we could just render this the way it is now into our animations folder, our encoding and stuff like that. So what we're going to do is go drop our encoder. I have mine set to AVI on H.264. I recommend you put it on QTRLE animation, AVI, and render it out that way because now you have the RGBA channel. Right? So the alpha channel is what gives us our transparency, and our transparency is all over the place in this video. And the great thing is you can always leave your container the same. So you can leave it as QuickTime, MP4, but you'll find when you try to render sometimes, it'll tell you at the bottom that this format will not render with the QLT animation. So for instance, if I go hit render, you're going to see that everything renders properly. Now it's going to do everything frame by frame after it's all calculated. And then you'll see that it does hang right at that last sample. We can turn the resolution down on our camera to speed this up. We can add denoising things and such to speed this up, right? So as you see that our backgrounds are rendering, it's not going to show you that in your movie clip, but you might catch a few frames where it will display like that. See it flicker? When it flickers like that, that's pretty much how you know that it's rendering your video with its transparency. So I'm going to go back over that option with you one more time. So I'm just going to close this because we don't need it. But I will render it out. But you see that we do have our animation there. We have it on AVI, so make sure you're on AVI, RGBA, and we're pretty much good to go for back. And even if you wanted to set that up in advance, before you get into doing your animations and stuff like that, I highly recommend you do it. So like go nuts on this stuff, go wild, because you can do pretty much anything now, right? So this is AE2 Blend, the add-on. Again, I will be posting this in the description of the video. I don't know why Blender is glitching out like that. That's okay. I'm just going to go back into my off-shaded mode right here so I can get some better animation done. But yeah, you can go crazy now. You guys know how to add anything into any footage, so go nuts. But please do like and subscribe. I got a lot more fun VFX tutorials coming in the future, and I hope you all found this useful. And see you all soon. Have a good night.